Today we are at Homeland, which is a house that we recently flipped and finally got under contract. We are here walking it after it went under contract yesterday. So today's my first time actually personally walking the deal. Kenneth has been the one that's really been more boots on the ground, managing the construction. I was the one that found it and did the underwriting on it, so I'll also be going into the underwriting as well as what we got it under contract for. Let's go. Flip. So on this deal, we got it under contract for 230 grand, and we underwrote our ARV at 350, which eventually changed to 355 throughout our whole period. Very simple analyzer. As you can see on the left side, there's just two main figures, our purchase price and our exit price, which is also our after repair value, ARV. On the right side, we have different things per line item, and on each line you'll see different terms on the left and then figure on the right. So hard money, number of points, and then the interest on the hard money, how long we plan on holding the loan for or holding the deal for. In this case, this is what we actually held it for, but usually when I underwrite, I put 5 to 6 months. In this case, we're already under contract, so we know how long we're going to hold it. Down payment, as you can see, all of these figures, as I manipulate them, determine what our profit is. I use Google Excel to underwrite our deals, and I have the app on my phone, and sometimes I'll just use my laptop, but usually I'm always on my phone, so that's how I mainly underwrite my deals. So when looking at the analyzer, the first line under the word flip is hard money points, and to the right of that is 3% for this deal. Usually you'll get this from your hard money lender. This lender that we were using on this deal, the terms they gave us were 3 points that we needed to bring to closing. Points are pretty much just 3% of the overall loan amount. That's what they charge at closing. So you can easily do the math on that to see how much in regards to points that you'll need to bring to close on the loan. So in this case, the exact amount that we had to bring to closing was 8,460 just for the 3 points. Now we're not done in regards to all the other things we had to bring to closing, but that's one part of it. So on the next line, and here we have 13%. We got that from our lender. This lender obviously charged us 13% on a monthly annualized interest rate. A lot of lenders typically will do anywhere from 11 to 13%, and this is determined usually based on your credit and your experience and track record with that lender, or just in general. A lot of these lenders will give you more favorable terms. The more deals you do, the better your track record, or a mixture of the two. So as you grow as a fix and flipper and as an investor, you'll build more confidence with the lender and they'll give you more favorable terms. And the way that looks is just simply a lower interest rate, so you make more money. The next line, loan terms, and we measure that by the number of months that were in the project. I also call this our hold period. And what we'll do going into the deal is we'll usually underwrite from 5 to 6 months hold period, and that's usually what we're using, and sort of assuming that's how long it'll take us to close on the property and then sell. The reason it's important to be conservative, meaning assume it'll take you longer than it should take you, is because things happen all the time on these projects. So the more time that you put into your underwriting in regards to how long you'll actually be in the project, the goal is to obviously get out a lot sooner than you underwrote. But if the numbers make sense, assuming worst case it takes you longer than expected, then it's probably a good deal. So here, it actually will take us less than 4 months to get in and out of this project. We know that now because we're under contract with our end buyer after completing the flip. But when I went into it, I used 5 months, and usually our projects are only taking 3 to 4. So as you can see, that's how I was conservative. I was assuming it was going to take us longer than it usually does. And in this case, I was right, but you're not always right. So that's why it's important to be conservative in that aspect. The next line is the loan down payment. This usually is just determined based on the lender. So here we have this figure. Really, Kenneth is the one that will go in and finalize that number. I usually just quickly focus on certain aspects of the underwriting. So on these projects, we actually raise money, meaning we'll bring on a hard money lender, and then there's usually a gap amount in regards to funding that we need to bring to closing. Hard money lenders are not usually covering all of your expenses. As I mentioned, in this case, it was 3 points, and there's closing costs, and then we usually like to have some amount of capital in reserves to cover any shortfall in regards to covering interest payments or just funding our renovations up front, because for these kinds of projects, we take out draws. So the lender will fund 100% of our CapEx budget, but they don't give you that cash at closing. It's usually in sort of reimbursements after you prove that you actually completed a part of the business plan. Once they see that and they do their inspection, they will give you a reimbursement. That's why it's important for us to raise the money so that we can do more projects. And that's where the private money lender comes into play. They are getting an interest on the amount that they lend us, and that's the amount that I'm keeping track of on the private money lender line. The next few lines, the processing fee, the appraisal fee, the credit report fee, and all the way down to insurance are inputs that change per property, but these don't really change drastically, so they're usually not lines that I won't fix and input until I am very certain I'm going to be moving forward on a deal. The insurance line, this is going to vary on the market that you're in. For me in North Carolina, depending on how big the house is and how expensive the house is, it will make a difference. But as you can see, if it's, let's say, $1,000 on this project, if I change it to $3,000, it changes it maybe 1 or 2K, but if the project works, it should work regardless of the insurance rate. And we're not in Texas or Florida currently, so our insurance isn't drastically going to change. That's why I usually just pay the most attention to my purchase price, the ARV, the number of months, and my renovation line, which is the next line. So this is obviously probably the number one line outside of your purchase price and your ARV that I pay the most attention to. For renovations, as you can see on this project, it was $52,000 that we actually ended up spending. This was something that we were a little bit under budget on at first. When we went in, I assumed it would take us $45,000 because the roof was new and didn't need to be replaced. But once you start peeling back walls, you do realize that there are certain things that you didn't account for, but it ended up working out in the end. Next line is our agent commission. So as you can see, this is really low, but that's why it's important to work with awesome agents that you can work out really good deals with. So for this one, it's actually not 2.5. We agreed with our agent that since we're giving them volume, as you can see, I changed it to 4.5, which includes the buyer's agent fee as well as the seller's agent fee. So in this case, it's 1.5 for them, and then the rest goes to the buyer's agent, where I account for the buyer's agent. So that's about 3%, and 1.5 that we all have to pay our seller agent fee. So as you can see, the last 3 lines include closing costs, A to B and B to C, meaning from us to the wholesaler or the seller to us on the acquisition side, and then us to the end buyer who will be buying the renovated property from us, and then taxes. Now obviously taxes vary per project. The bigger the house and the more expensive the home, usually the higher taxes are on an annual basis. So the way that we find that is by simply going to Zillow or any data resource that you can have access to. Zillow is free and it's usually pretty accurate, so that's where I usually go to find taxes for the properties that we flip. And I'll insert that in this line, and then this is really just a total of all of the fees in regards to what it'll cost us, and then net profit here. So as you can see, the budget here was not 52, it was 47. We're gonna actually end up netting over 30 grand on this deal, which for us, it's can't really complain. That's us doing well. We were able to get out in a shorter amount of time than anticipated, regardless of unexpected circumstances that came up, meaning the roof in this case that we weren't planning on changing, but so happened that it had a few leaks that we weren't aware of. Once we started pulling back sheetrock, we saw that, so we decided to go ahead and change it, and the market rewarded us because we were able to get over ask price. So we won't have time to go into how we ran comps on this property, but if that's something that you'd like us to show you how we did and how we do, let us know in the comment section. As you can see, staging comes a long way. I think I did a pretty good job. There's been certain properties where I think on certain finishes we could have done a better job. Me and Kerwin are pretty critical in regards to Kenneth and making sure that we see progress in small things like finishes, because we obviously want to try to get the most once we go to market, and I think it's very important to pay attention to the small details. You got this modern aesthetic to it. This property got multiple offers, and I can see why. I mean, it's something that I would like to live in and I would enjoy living in, especially for this kind of price point in this market where we are in Durham. It's really hard to find product like this. Usually the way that I try to be conservative based on how long I project the project will take us from the point of closing all the way to closing on the front end and then closing on the back end. So I'll usually assume it's going to take us 1 to 2 months longer than it usually does. I went into this deal thinking it would take us 5 months, but it actually only took us 4, and I think we might even be able to get out of it under 4 months, but you'll still pay that month's worth of interest, so we'll still be short 1 month, meaning we'll have to make 1 less month of interest payments than I had anticipated.
You know, like how when you have a deal and the deal, like unexpected things come up, how do you budget for that?
What we did on this one was we did go a little over budget, meaning we spent more than what we had anticipated we would, but you should always be conservative and assume you're going to spend more than what you think it'll cost you. So let's say that the contractor that walked the property with us and or the contractor we planned on going with would charge us 50 grand on this project. We should have put anywhere from 55 to 60 grand in our budget. In this case, we matched that exactly what we thought we would spend. So when something unexpected came up, which was the roof, it wasn't necessarily a huge expense, but we were obviously spending more than what we had anticipated. I think the master's good. It's got a good size. Obviously, there's a bathroom. Very spacious. Floating vanity, kind of loved and would never shut up about. Adds a very, like I said, modern aesthetic and makes it feel a little luxurious, especially for the price point. You don't see a lot of houses in our market with finishes like this, and I think it really helped us get over ask on this one because of that. I'd give myself an 8 out of 10 in regards to my accuracy on our underwriting. Now, I will blame Kenneth for that because what I was wrong or I could have been better on was the construction budget, which I get from Kenneth after he walks it. We talked about that. Obviously, as I mentioned, we didn't expect to replace the roof and we ended up replacing it, but I was extremely conservative on our ARV. I anticipated getting 350 on our ARV and we ended up selling it over ask, which is awesome. It works itself out. What is this? This is a living room?
Yeah.
Honestly, this is a little weird. I've never been in this house, but like usually when you walk into a house, you walk into the living room. I just realized the living room's almost, well, I guess what door is this? Honestly, don't know. But hey, it's sold, so I don't think obviously it was that big of an issue. On the underwriting, I work with our agent, Angie, my good friend, and she pretty much just helped me underwrite the deal by looking at ARV. And then Kenneth also looks at ARV, but mainly Kenneth helps me with the construction budget. So we ended up getting this one under contract for $357. As I mentioned, I underwrote our ARV to $350, and we ended up listing it at $355. We got a few offers, and one came in at a listing price, the other one came in a little bit under listing price, and we ended up being able to get one of the potential buyers up and then had a best and final, and then that offer came in highest and best at $357. One tip for underwriting and looking at comps is to always make sure you're going and looking at what is currently on the market. You can always look at what went pending over the last few days. You'll just go to Zillow and there's a filter you can click to see what's actually pending or under contract. This will give you an idea as to what kind of action is going on right now, and then that'll sometimes give you insight and access to brand new comps that actually haven't closed. Another thing I like to look at on those pending and under contract comps is how long it sat on the market before it got an offer and went under contract or went pending. So that's all for today. If you guys have any questions, comments, tips that you can give us, please leave anything that you have in the comment section down below. As always, stay tuned for the next video. Thanks for tuning in.